All right, so I got it installed, but it's already a big problem. All right, so what's going on, guys? So in today's video, I'm going to be installing my catch can. Hopefully you saw my last video where I shaved the valve cover and then took it to Trey to have those bunks welded in. All kind of in preparation for this. Now, I actually got the valve cover powder coated and I did get it back. Color looks really good and I'm going to show you guys that later on in the video. But with that said, let's get to it. All right, guys, so this is the catch can I went with. It's just a generic Amazon catch cans. This one's made by TT Racing. It actually feels like a pretty solid piece. And I went with this one. It is a good size. It's listed at about 1 liter. I know most of them have this brass like wing nut type deal that I've just had bad experience with having those leak. This one looks a little bit higher quality. It's almost like everything on here is an AN fitting. Now, as you can see, it doesn't come with the barb, so you do have to purchase those separately, which I do have, and I'll show you guys in a second. And even this top breather screws on. It's like an AN type fitting. So when you get this, it's actually not going to come with the drain on it. I went ahead and screwed that in. Now we just got to figure out a place to mount this thing. Now, if you look at it, it doesn't look that big, and it really isn't. This thing is probably 8 inches by 3 inches by 3 inches. So it's really not huge. And initially I thought I wouldn't have a problem fitting it. But then as I looked on the back of the firewall, there's actually stuff. Of course, you have your lines for your brake lines, and you have this, which is your AC line, and then your throttle cable. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of back here. So I really got to find a good spot to fit it. I haven't actually ordered my fittings yet because I wasn't sure how I was going to mount it and which ones I would need. So I'm going to get this mounted first, see where it's going to end up, and then I'll order my fittings. And of course, at the end of the video, I'm gonna show you guys my new valve cover. I'm actually really excited about it. The color looks really good, especially under sunlight. So I'm hoping I can pick this up on camera. But first things first, I gotta find a place to mount this. That way I can go ahead and get my fittings ordered. I'm actually using the same line that I use for my oil drain line because they're both 10 AN. Now, as far as fittings, relatively inexpensive brand off Amazon called Evil Energy. They seem to be pretty good so far. They're holding up as far as my oil drain line, which is not leaking. Comes with a little sticker. And these are, 2 male 10 AN fittings. And of course, if you can see that, I'll get the side of the bag. It actually has an O-ring on the back of it to make sure that it seals up against that catch can. So you can see the fittings. So I've actually been really happy with these fittings. They're priced well and they do the job. So, and of course, with them being on Amazon and Amazon Prime, they ship pretty quickly. So like I said, you're gonna need these, something with an O-ring on it to make sure it seals, and the 10 AN. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw these into the oil can. Now, of course, when you're doing this, you do not want to use any sort of sealant or thread tape or anything like that. You just want to screw these directly in here. And one of the reasons I chose this was in addition to the, kind of quality. If you can see that, it's actually baffled. So there is a baffle down in there. Behind it, you can kind of see it on the website. It actually showed you a cutout of the inside. So it's a really simple design, but this way you don't have to worry about any oil that might be built up getting sucked back through these ports back into the valve cover. So it is baffled. The link to all this stuff will be down in the description. Make sure you check those out. Those are affiliate links. So anything you buy will help me out. But like I said, now the hard part, the tough part is, again, where am I going to mount this thing? Because I can't really mount it here because the windshield motor thing is in place. Got the brake lines up there. So maybe I can mount it lower, or it may go here where I've got my boost sensor. So as you can see from top to bottom, the whole thing is about 12 inches long. And like I said, just over 3 inches. So it is pretty tall. You want to put it in a spot where you can still reach this drain. Hey, all right, guys, so this is what I came up with. I've actually made this little bracket here. This is actually just a piece of scrap I already had laying around the garage. So you see I drilled 2 holes in it. This is where the catch can is going to mount since it's flat. And then on this little bin here, that part is going to go into the firewall. This will be kind of hard to see, but basically the bracket is going to mount there on that post that was already there, and then attach to the firewall below the windshield wiper motor. And the reason I went with that is because it's going to allow the top filter, the top of the filter, which I don't have on here right now, to sit right in between this little gap here, right in here. So it seemed like a perfect spot for it. This bracket will help secure it, keep it from rattling. Now I'm sure you can use just the 1 hole, but of course this will keep it from rattling especially when it gets full. You don't want it moving around, and just you don't have to worry about it if you're using both holes. So of course this is a pretty simple fix of that. I am going to clean it up. As you can see, the edges on it are really rough, and I'm going to paint this with that truck liner I used to do my battery cover. All right guys, so I got the paint sanded off and the edges smooth. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this thing cleaned up and get it painted and get it mounted. All right guys, so I'm done mounting my catch can. I'm actually really happy with how it came out. That simple bracket made a world of difference. So it's kind of tucked nicely behind the strut towel bar, and I still can get to my plug where my windshield wiper motor goes. The AN fittings of course are facing that way, which allow me to run my lines kind of straight off here. I may use a 90 or a 45. I'll see what works best to kind of curve those around and down into my fittings here. I think I have 190 or 145 degree 10 AN, so I can see which is going to work the best for that. But that should be a nice gentle curve and allow that to work without restriction there. In case you wanted this catch can, like I said, the link is down below. But it comes in the satin black, which is what I have, a raw aluminum, and a polished aluminum look, as well as 3 different sizes, 1, 2, and 3 liters. This particular one is the 1 liter. Like I said, all in all, between the filter and the drain, it's about a foot long for the 1 liter. So this is their smallest option. So you want to be aware of that. There are a lot of places that you could mount it. It's really up to you. That's just kind of the easiest, using that stud that was already there, plus my little bracket made out of some scrap metal that I had already. So now that's done, I'm going to go ahead and get my lines mocked up. I needed to get a new valve cover gasket, and I'm going to install the valve cover. Alright guys, so I got my fittings in. So this is really all you're going to need to do your catch can install. I've got 4 fittings. In this case I went with 4 45 degree. I do have a 90 degree fitting over there. I have my 10 AN hose. Of course I use this same hose for my drain line, and it's doing well. It's not leaking or anything. These two you don't need. So these are an aluminum AN wrench, and this is for your vice grip or your bench vice. Now again, I say you don't need these because you can use like a traditional adjustable wrench, but if you do, you want to make sure you wrap the jaws with tape or something to keep them from damaging the fittings. But it's really more of an aesthetic thing, and of course, like I said, you don't want to damage these because these aren't cheap. So of course this brand is relatively inexpensive, but these are still anywhere from 10 to 12 bucks a piece. So you can see how the cost can add up with that. But again, I've went with this brand before on every other AN fitting on the car, and it has done a good job. And again, you can get these off Amazon. I got the links down in the description. Check those out. Like I said, so you don't need these. You can use a regular wrench. And of course, this is the catch can with the added little fittings on here. These male-to-male AN fittings that I've already added on here. So this one did not come with those. So you had to buy those extra and add those on. And you can see my little bracket that I made for my cars. So it is pretty simple. As you can see, I just have the one hole here on the right is where it bolts that stud on the car. Of course, that left hole didn't attach anything, and then there's a hole on that far side in that bin that actually connects to the firewall. So technically speaking, we're actually adding a little bit of structural rigidity by installing this catch can too. So I've already got this mocked up. I know where it's going to go. I like where it is, so I'm going to go ahead and put this back, and I'm going to start playing around with my fittings to see what's going to work. Alright guys, so I got it remounted. That screw for that firewall brace was actually a pain in the butt to get to once everything was already mounted. But it is in. As you can see, that thing is actually really stable in there. Alright guys, so one more thing. So of course, now that I got the cam cover off, this is a good time to check your timing belt. So like I said in my head swap video, if you haven't seen it, this is the belt from the 94 Galant GS. It is longer than the Evo belt, and I use this one just because it's a little bit easier to install when you're trying to do the head swap in the car. Because the Evo belt is a little bit shorter. It does fit, but this belt, having that extra slack in it, which is easy to install, again, being that the engine's in the car and this whole area is actually kind of tight. Now, I know I saw some people complaining about this belt, saying it wasn't a good choice, but it really just boils down to your tensioner and, of course, the quality of the belt itself. Of course, this is a Gates belt. Gates makes a lot of OEM parts and an OEM tensioner. And if you look at it after running, this thing still has very little play in it. So that's what you want to see. It doesn't really matter which belt you use as long as you use a quality belt and a quality tensioner. They normally last a long time, but if yours is on the way out, it's not going to keep the necessary slack on the belt, which can lead to a lot of issues. But anyway, I'm done with that. So like I said, I'm going to finish getting this valve cover off so I can get the rest of this thing mocked up. So now that you got the valve cover off, it's a good time to inspect your valve train. Of course, I didn't hear any strange noises anyway, so I'm pretty sure everything's going to be fine. And like I said, it's only been running for a couple hundred miles. But you want to check just to make sure, since you're under here. But of course, everything in here still looks good. I'm going to go ahead and check the torque on my head bolts and just a few other things in here. It's just because I have it off. And then I'll swap the gasket over to my new valve cover and go ahead and get that slapped on. Alright guys, so of course there are plenty of videos on how to do AN lines on YouTube, but I'm going to show you guys a few things. So I'm using this rubber hose. It's like steel reinforced, if I can get the focus, rubber. Again, like I said, this is the same stuff I use to do my oil drain line. This is 10 AN. And what I used to cut it, I wanted to try something. So I actually use this thing to cut it, or to attempt to cut it. So what this is a PVC pipe cutter. And it gave me a nice clean cut all up into this back edge, where, because of course this isn't made to cut this, it doesn't clamp down quite enough. So normally I would use like my grinder or cutoff wheel, something like that to do it, which again, those do work. But I wanted to find something, you know, that didn't require me to have to plug that up. And like I said, this did the job. It's like it got through most of it, and I just used a pair of side cutters to, you know, kind of finish it off. Other than that, this is simple. You just take these caps off your AN fittings. Like, so once you get the cap off, you want to slide this cap over one of these ends. Of course, you need to remove the tape. You want to push it down and thread it onto here. Now, this is going to be a pain to get on because it's supposed to be a tight fit, because it's basically going to force the end of the hose onto this little end here, and then that's how it tightens it down. That's how it gives you that leak-free seal. So you can see what kind of cut you can expect. Now, you're always going to have some fraying, even if you're using stainless steel line. So you just want to trim that. Like I said, I'm going to use my side cutters or my dikes or whatever you want to call them. Like, so if you guys can see inside of there, you want the hose to be all the way up against the lip of the fitting. They should pretty much be touching the threads. And at this point, we're just going to need to try to press this end back onto the tip of that other fitting. Now, this is where that little vise piece I showed you earlier comes in handy, because sometimes these can be really difficult, especially with the larger fittings, where you're going to need to lock down one end and keep it in place, and then that way you can push down on the other end while you tighten it. All right, so this is how this works. These two plates actually have magnets on them. They sit on the top. Again, these are made out of aluminum, so you don't have to worry about damaging them. I've got the bottom fitting clamped in, and now I'm just going to tighten it with this one. All right, guys, so there we have it. You can see the fitting is undamaged. You want to keep in mind that these are, you know, anodized. Some of these are coated in different ways, so the wrench can take off some of that, but it won't actually damage the fitting. Now I just got to flip it over and attach the other side. All right, guys, so the line is complete. I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. All right, guys, so I went ahead and finished up the other line. I got everything installed. So far, everything looks pretty good, but there is kind of one big problem that I kind of see already. I didn't really think about this when I was doing it. So now I did turn some lights on just to try to help really bring that color out, because again, in the sun, it looks great. But when the light's off and it's kind of dark under the hood, you can't really see it at certain angles. So I'm hoping the camera's going to pick it up, but without further ado, here it goes. And there it is, guys. Now, I love this color. And of course, you probably could have guessed it was going to be blue, just because, you know, my coupler and the blow-off valve and the other filter. But really, when I started this build, I didn't plan for everything to be blue. It kind of just happened that way. And what I mean by that, of course, I got the blue coupler kit first for the intercooler piping. And of course, I got the blue kit as opposed to the one with the black coupler, just because at the time it was like $20 or $30 cheaper. Again, I'm trying to save some money, and it really didn't make that much of a difference because there was only going to be one visible coupler. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just go with the blue. That's fine. And then if I remember the timeline right, I think I actually got the blue filter. Like, so initially I had ordered the K&N filter. On the website, I thought it was gray, but then I got it and it was blue. It turns out I actually really ended up liking the color. As you can tell by my toolbox, I do like blue anyway. So I went ahead and ordered a bigger filter and a different one. And this one just so happened to come in that blue colorway. So that kind of led me down the path of getting the blue blow-off valve. And, of course, now the valve cover. Now I want to get an angle on it so you can really see it. And I'm hoping the camera is going to focus on it. It is a little bit brighter than the other blues, but I'm okay with that. But as you can see, it has a lot of metallic in it. And the way the sun hits it, it kind of goes from like a dark blue to a light blue, almost like silver in some areas. And it looks really good as far as the color does. So now, of course, the problem I have, you guys tell me if you can see this, is what do you think it is? Is right now, everything else in the engine bay looks a lot uglier with this thing installed. I mean, this thing just puts the rest of the engine bay to shame. I did order this new oil cap. I got this from Amazon, and this is actually it fits a Honda as well, so in case you're wondering. Now, I'm still kind of on the fence about it because it is a little smaller than I would really like, and there's no like lip on it. So this whole thing is kind of machined down to one piece. So to grab it, you kind of have to make sure you grab the top of it. Now, but you guys let me know what you think. I tried out the other one I had, the black plastic one. I didn't really like the way that looked either, but I'm gonna go with this for now. Again, it wasn't expensive, it was like 10 bucks. Only thing I really don't like is this area over here. So now you don't have to worry, you're not gonna see a blue explosion in this engine bay, you're not gonna see blue hoses and all that stuff. That's too much for me. I still think that stuff is kind of ricey, but this will probably be the last blue thing that comes in this engine bay. At least as far as major pieces. Of course, that is why I went with the black catch can and just a few other things. So I'm not looking to make like a show engine bay, but I just wanted something that would look good and would clean up easy and hold well. So I'm hoping the powder coat lasts for a while. Again, it should, because I won't be taking this head back off anytime soon. I won't be doing any major work. So this is pretty much what it's gonna be. Now I'm gonna start working on just the looks of the car. I've actually had a front lip for it. It's kind of sitting up there, and I've had that for over a year now. I'm actually gonna be repainting this thing again. Of course, it's not gonna be anything crazy. But I will show you guys that as well. And of course, get everything up and running 100%. I got some stuff I'm doing with the interior. All things I've already talked about before. Now, even though I said there won't be any more blue under the hood, I will be adding a few blue touches around the car, mainly the brake calipers. So somebody mentioned in one of my other videos when I talked about the stopping power. This thing was never meant to do what I'm trying to do with it. You know, the brakes show, especially. Now, when I bought the car, I don't know why I'm showing you the wheels, but when I bought the car, the guy had already installed like some aftermarket like drilled and slotted rotors, and he had already done the pads. So so they're actually pretty new parts on here, but even still, we'll just give you a little bit of extra peace of mind knowing you have upgraded brakes. So with that said, I do have a plan up on my shelf of goodies up here. I'm going to bring something down and show you what I have planned to fix that problem. So to fix my braking issues, I am going with some Evo Brembos. The back is actually from an Evo 8, but the front is actually from an Evo 10. So now the Evo 10 front brake caliper is actually a little bit bigger than the 8 9s. A lot of those guys are upgrading to these, and apparently it's pretty simple. You just have to drill out the hole and make them a little bit bigger to fit these. But of course, with the bigger caliper, it'll hold a bigger rotor. So with that, it should brake a little bit better, and of course look a little bit better. So be on the lookout for that. I am going to have these rebuilt and powder coated, and these are going to be in the same color again as my valve cover. But I think that will probably be everything I do in blue. Because again, I don't want to go crazy with it. I want something that looks nice, but keep it pretty simple. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys for watching my video. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.